everyone, and thank you for joining this week's Stacker Chat. My name is Gina. I'm a team member with the Stacks project, joined by Muneeb, Stacks founder. Thanks for being here, Muneeb. How are you doing?
I'm good. I was traveling a bit and I'm back in my home office. That definitely feels good.
Excellent. Cool. Well, for anyone who is just joining, the Stacks 2.0 blockchain launched earlier this year, bringing apps and smart contracts to Bitcoin. And we're able to sit down and chat with Muneeb a little bit about what's going on. So Friday last week was the latest Stacks Townhall. And those have been really incredible to see. It sort of started off as a small group of people. Now there's many hundreds of people that join every time. And I think there was over 13 different speakers, these like lightning updates that were incredible. And at this point, there are a ton of senior leaders, independent entities for Stacks. How was it watching this ecosystem of builders come together from your view? What are some of the things that you're prioritizing or most excited for really to catalyze upon the momentum that we're seeing?
Yeah, I think that was definitely interesting. Like I remember like early on when we do town halls, like I would actually be more involved with them. I would have a bunch of like question and answers for the community and this and that. And it was interesting that I didn't know about the town hall and it wasn't even on my calendar. And I actually just saw it. I forget if I saw it on Twitter or somewhere else. And I followed the link and I was actually just in the audience, right? And people were popping up. It truly felt like a decentralized ecosystem. Like I literally had no idea that these new people, who are they, what work they're doing, and they would just like give an update on the exciting things they've done on top of the Stacks blockchain and the broader Bitcoin ecosystem. And that was just fascinating, right? Like I think like I probably enjoyed sitting in the audience more than I have like actually being on the other side and talking to the community and talking about how we're building the public infrastructure and so on. So I think it truly was a moment where like if I'm not updated, like I think a lot of people try to like talk to me or get guidance from me. And if I didn't know like so many different things that are happening in the ecosystem, I think it's fair to say that at this point nobody knows, right? Like it's a truly decentralized ecosystem. There could be so many developers who are hacking on cool stuff that they haven't shown yet. I was just looking the other day. I think there are now something like 80 plus smart contracts that are deployed on the Stacks blockchain, and it's a permissionless system. Anyone in the world can come in and just like deploy these things, and it's a permissionless blockchain. Anyone could be a miner, and sometimes you don't even know like who's mining, who's publishing these contracts, and so on. So it's great that this community is actually coming together organically, independently, and they're being attracted by the values of Stacks and Bitcoin, where we optimize for decentralization, where we optimize for open networks, and we want to build like truly open source decentralized system there. And I think people all over the world are kind of like responding to those type of values coming there. And I think that was just like amazing to see.
Absolutely. Now, I kind of feel like over the last year or so, with the launch of Stacks 2.0, the project has really gone from 0 to 1. We're seeing this incredible momentum. What do you really envision as sort of the next chapter, the next wave of adoption for Stacks?
So I think my view is that the public infrastructure work is pretty much like done. Obviously, there will be small improvements here and there. There are ways people would come up with maybe doing some things more efficiently and so on. I have some ideas. I'll discuss them as well. But in general, I think the public infrastructure is not there. So the equivalent of that would be when Bitcoin launched and miners were operating it. Yes, there have been some improvements on the Bitcoin network over time, but largely speaking, I think Bitcoin has been a stable code base and a reliable network, and people are able to do other things on top of the decentralized network. And I think of Stacks that way, where it's actually the way the proof of transfer mechanism works. It actually inherits a lot of the proof of work type properties. And given how the blockchain is open, anyone could be a miner, how we respond to like, reorgs and things like that. But there's a lot of motivation that was taken from Bitcoin's proof of work, and in many ways, like making it more energy efficient and still providing kind of like interesting security guarantees and so on. So I do see ourselves a little bit like Bitcoin, that the core blockchain would be stable. It'd be very hard to kind of like make breaking changes to the underlying consensus, because you need more than 80% of the miners to come together and agree to that, and so on. I do think the next chapter is really about applications and smart contracts, like developers doing interesting things there. And again, as I was saying earlier, that it's amazing to see so many people coming in and actually tinkering with these things and actually developing interesting stuff. I think just today, I tweeted about boom boxes, which is Dan and others who have kind of like built the NFTs on Bitcoin using Stacks. And these NFTs can have these interesting properties where, just like Stacks has Bitcoin rewards, you can actually attach some sort of rewards. Like I think maybe right now the rewards are in Stacks, but then the Stacks themselves can be used to earn Bitcoin and stuff like that. But that's super interesting that, because Stacks is a Bitcoin yielding asset, people are using it in creative ways, even with NFTs. And then on the smart contract side, I think the Stacks Accelerator is a great place to watch. There's something like 25 new startups, new entities that are going through the accelerator, and that's just the batch like over the summer, right? Like I expect a lot more of these things to happen over time and organically around the world in a decentralized fashion, because I think people who care about decentralization, who care about open networks, who actually, they're the same type of people who get attracted to Bitcoin versus some other blockchains that might be more closed or more centralized and don't kind of like stand for decentralization as much as Bitcoin. And I think Stacks kind of like goes hand in hand with Bitcoin. So I think we attract that type of a community and that type of developers. And I do think that that is really the next phase in terms of like some of the things that I'm personally interested in. Like I've over the past month or so, I've had some more time thinking about potential ways where you could launch like additional functionality. Like for example, I think I've discussed this idea at a very early stage of like subnets, where the Stacks chain is kind of like the main network, but you could potentially have subnets that have different properties. Maybe you want faster transaction processing times, or maybe some other modifications that you want, and you can run it as a subnet. I think that's one idea I'm tinkering with. I will probably write it up. But again, I can't introduce that change into the network. Like I can just write up my thoughts and kind of like share it with the community and see where it goes. And the second area is around new features in Clarity language, where you can potentially write back to Bitcoin more directly. And I think better support for that could actually be super interesting, because I think people are only beginning to discover the power of Clarity contracts reading Bitcoin state. So if you do a Bitcoin transaction, it can trigger logic on the stack side. And I think you can also do the reverse of that. And it's already there in some limited capacity through the PUX contract, but you want to make it more general. I think those are the two areas that I'm personally more interested in, like mostly kind of like new types of functionality as subnets, and secondly, the Clarity right back to the Bitcoin world.
Absolutely. Inventor and running Hiro, and hopefully we've also been able to free up some bandwidth, because we've been hiring some senior leaders. Would you be able to talk to some of the folks that have recently joined Hiro?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that has been really good. That was actually like a learning for me. I feel like even when we were working on launching the Stacks blockchain, and that was a really big event, obviously, because independent miners were going to come in and launch this network, and it was a big kind of like moment in the ecosystem. I feel like I was just constantly just running from one thing to the next, and the concept of like ever taking a break was like just not there. I think the last time I took a break was probably like August of 2019 or something like that. So it's been a long time. We're in 2021 now. And I started realizing that there are almost like an unlimited number of things I could be working on. Like I would, for example, personally spend a lot of time in the grassroots, in the community, like talking to people, learning about, what do they want from a decentralized ecosystem like Stacks and this and that. And I started realizing that, there are certain things where the ROI is a lot more if I directly spend my time there. And I've kind of like disconnected myself from certain activities, like on purpose. And I'm actually spending a lot more time on more high leverage things, like hiring is one of them. I think a lot of people have been giving me advice that you really need to have bring in like more experienced senior leadership at Hiro, so that on the more day-to-day operations type of work, like I don't have to directly get involved, because I think there are people better than me who actually run companies at a much like bigger scale when they come in and do this work, and it's actually better that they do the work versus me trying to do that work. So I think Alex is a great example. People must be familiar with Stack Overflow, like so many developers around the world use it. And Stack Overflow recently had a $1.8 billion exit. And Alex was an executive there. He actually worked directly with the CEO, Joel Spolsky, that I highly respect him as a CEO and also as a developer. And they built one of the best engineering teams like in the country, and definitely in the East Coast and New York area for sure. And getting Alex to actually come in and join Hiro is a huge deal for us, right? Like he built the Stack Overflow enterprise business. He actually scaled the company a lot. Like the company grew a lot under him. So I think that was a very strong hire for us, and I can already feel the difference now, right? Like Alex can actually take on a lot of the responsibility of the day-to-day operations and leadership internally at Hiro. So Alex was interestingly on the Townhall introducing himself, which is great. Like I was not there, but he was, and that also felt great. And similarly, we've hired a VP of marketing, Caitlin, who was at Amplitude, which is like a $4 billion company. She was at GitHub. She was at Stack Overflow again. She had overlapped with Alex at Stack Overflow. And again, that's a very, very strong hire, and I'm very, very excited about that. A lot of people tell us that people at Hiro, they're all kind of like computer scientists and engineers, and we built like great technology, and we need to simplify some of our messaging and actually reach more developers and so on. And that is, I realize that's a very important area. So we actually spent a lot of time. I think we did more than, I personally spent like more than 6 months on this particular hire for the VP of marketing. And I think it's totally worth it. Like getting the right person like Caitlin in the job can really increase our reach in terms of number of developers Hiro can reach. I think it's important to understand the difference here. Like Hiro is one entity within the broader Stacks ecosystem, and we focus on developer tools. And what I'm talking about over here is how efficient is Hiro as a company to build those developer tools, and how efficient is Hiro as a company to then reach out to developers all around the world and tell them about the features that they can use, and then come and build interesting things in like on top of Bitcoin and Stacks, right? And I think that's generally good for everyone in the broader Bitcoin ecosystem, but obviously for us as a company, like that's our bread and butter. We want more developers to come and use these products, because then we want to potentially monetize these things down the road as a company, right? So we obviously work in the Stacks ecosystem, but we are a business at the end of the day. So we want to get a lot of developers to use these things, and then we can potentially monetize that. For example, we announced the Hiro platform some weeks ago, where that's a hosted platform. People who are looking for certain services, instead of running it themselves, if they just want to pay Hiro to run those services, they can. Obviously, it's at a very early stage right now. There's no kind of paid offering. And we are right now learning from the developers, trying to make their life as easy as possible. And slowly we'll iterate over how that hosted platform would evolve over time. But in general, I think making hires like these obviously frees up a little bit of my time that I can then spend more on R&D or other types of kind of like activities that I wasn't able to do, including this chat, right? Like including like trying to produce more content and getting some of these ideas out in the world. Like I think getting these hires was super critical to be able to do that.
Absolutely. And if folks are interested in learning a little bit more about, Hiro, the developer tools company for Stacks, and joining the team, check out hiro.so/careers. Just had to throw in that plug. But another thing that I've just been so excited about is how just seeing a ton of energy and traction in Stacks chapters across the world. This is like Pakistan and other countries. How are you viewing Bitcoin and Stacks as sort of a tool and opportunity for growth in these international communities?
Yeah, so I think that has been super encouraging for sure. I don't have the latest stats, but I think at some point, some months ago when I looked, there were more than 30,000 community members on various local groups on Telegram, right? So some of them are in local languages. For example, there might be like a Pakistan group or a Persian group or a Turkish one, or in places like Egypt or so on. And that's like really amazing to see. That basically, to me, says that the mission of what we are trying to do, we're trying to build this decentralized internet on top of Bitcoin, actually speaks to a lot of people. And specifically, our focus on smart contracts for Bitcoin, like that, people see that as a much needed thing. People see that as a huge potential opportunity where Bitcoin is the largest network, the largest crypto network. And most of the Bitcoin is pretty much like passive right now, like in the sense that it's not actively deployed in smart contracts. And developers around the world basically see that as a potential big opportunity. And people are getting excited about the work that Stacks has done, which is very unique, that instead of building a separate blockchain, we basically came in, figured out a way that you can have a L1 blockchain that can connect to Bitcoin, that can enable kind of like getting benefits from the Bitcoin security, and also enable you to directly kind of like have Bitcoin transactions trigger logic in smart contracts, or the other way around, that you have smart contracts that are triggering logic Bitcoin. And I truly think that that's groundbreaking, and that just starts this new path, that instead of having all these different networks, and there are many of them, right? Like Ethereum is the largest, but also Polkadot, Solana, Avalanche. Like there are so many other networks that are doing amazing work in their own regard. But why can't you just do this on Bitcoin, which is by far the largest network? And I think that's the work that we want to enable, and we're super excited about it. And seeing that people around the world get excited about it basically reinforces this point of view that this is something that is global, and people around the world actually really care about that.
For sure. Well, excited to continue to share some updates, and we're going to wrap up this episode. But for anyone who's interested in learning a little bit more, definitely feel free to subscribe to the Stacks YouTube channel. We're going to continue posting these sessions, and if you want to learn more, head over to stacks.co to learn about the Stacks ecosystem. And if you're interested in, again, learning a little bit more about Hiro, which is a developer tools company for Stacks, that's hiro.so. And we're going to be tuning back in next week and hoping to do some more AMA type formats with these. So looking forward to seeing everyone soon. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Gina.